Good afternoon, and welcome to Wednesday Wonderings. We're glad you're with us today. We're going to talk about a very interesting miracle of Jesus today. It's the healing of the Canaanite woman, or the faith of the Canaanite woman for her daughter. So, and we're coming to you from Matthew chapter 15, verses 21 to 28. So, get out your Bible. Let's get to it. This is going to be good, right?
Yes, yeah. It is.
So we're going to take it kind of by a couple of verses. So, are you ready? Let's look at verse 21 and 22. Leaving that place, Jesus withdrew to the region of Tyre and Sidon. A Canaanite woman from that vicinity came to him crying out, "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is suffering terribly from demon possession." The first thing to note about this is, I think, the only time that Jesus leaves Jewish territory. Okay? So he doesn't actually go to Tyre and Sidon, the cities. He goes to the region of Tyre and Sidon, from what I understand. And I think, see if you don't agree with me, but I think that he's going here to seek some solace, some solitude, because the end is near in sight, and there's nowhere he can rest from the hatred of the scribes and the Pharisees, and also just being popular.
Yeah.
Right. People want to have him. Yeah.
I mean, in the ESV, it's pretty clear, I think, on that, on your thoughts. Jesus went away from there and withdrew. When you withdraw, you're not looking to engage with others. So, and he did this throughout a lot of different miracles and stuff. He went to spend time with the Father, to kind of spend that time with him, and to get away from the crowd. So I think that's
I think there's a lesson in that, that it's Jesus' humanity, but it's also what we face sometimes, that you want to withdraw at times when you feel so stressed and hurried. Those things can cause a lot of problems in your life, and you have to have times where you just withdraw, and you can have silence, and you can pray, and you can be with God and be away from all the stresses of life.
But he never withdraws from God.
No.
Like, I think that's something we need to be aware of, because when we withdraw, we just say, I don't want to be by it. He never has withdrawn from God, you know, and so that's really important for us to know.
Another thing is a Canaanite woman. So it's a Gentile, but not just any Gentile. Canaanites, if you go back to the book of Joshua, for instance, Canaanites, the Jews came to destroy them.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Utterly destroy them. It was wreaking God's vengeance on the Canaanites, not the Jews themselves doing this. This was, and so
they're just a pagan people. They were, just terrible.
And actually, when the Jews entered the Promised Land, Joshua took them into the Promised Land. None of the Canaanites made peace with them. None of them. And they all came to attack the Jews, the Hebrews, the Israelites. Somehow, though, this woman must have heard about Jesus. She must have, because she comes to him and she uses all the right, Jesus, Lord, Son of David, have mercy.
She uses all the language.
She uses all the language as if she was Jewish herself. And she comes with a very real and problem that we can all relate to. If you have had children and your child is sick or vexed in some way, boy, it can rip your heart out. I mean, you have 4 children, right?
Yeah, and your heart lives outside of your body when you have kids, is the best way I could describe it, And so when they hurt, you hurt, and so she just wants her child to be relieved from this oppression of this demonic activity.
That's right, yeah. And she says, please have mercy, right? So she's not coming in a position of strength or power. You need to do this because I'm a good person. I'm a fellow Jew. Well, she wasn't.
Right.
She doesn't come in a position of power.
No.
Or
she has nothing to offer Jesus.
Nothing. Let's just take the next verse. Jesus did not answer her a word. So his disciples came to him and urged him, "Send her away, for she keeps crying out after us." Now, I see a pattern in what's happening between Jesus and this woman, and we'll wait as it rolls out. But this was, I think, intentional on Jesus' part, because he is beginning to awaken a great faith in this woman. And this silence is part of what he's doing. Throughout the Bible, it tells us that God tests us. But he tests us not out of... why do we give tests to people? Is it to make them fall down or collapse or, feel bad? No, when we test people with a heart of love, we're wanting to awaken things in them, right?
Right.
And I think that's what he was doing here.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like, too, she knew all the language. Perhaps she had some type of faith that was,
right.
A mustard seed type faith in Jesus, even though she wasn't Jewish. She heard of him, and so she was just becoming very persistent in this moment. Right. And it seems like the disciples are... you don't know why they're kind of saying, like, please just get this woman away. Maybe she's annoying, but in a commentary I'm reading, maybe also, did they want Jesus' presence to become known at that point?
That's an idea.
Like, she's yelling out. It almost is like they keep walking,
and she
keeps following and pursuing and going, hey, and kind of like, that makes a scene. And if there's a lot of people around, there's a lot of stuff happening.
I think the word here is nuisance.
Oh, yeah.
She is a major nuisance, and she's annoying, and she is just, get away from us.
Yeah. Just leave us alone. She's like that little, he uses the word dog later, but she's like the little yippy dog that just will not leave you alone.
Right.
And she just keeps pursuing, and she's very persistent, and that's a good trait to have.
Right.
And it's a bad trait to have, depending on what the situation is.
So verses 24 and 25, he answered, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel." The woman came and knelt before him. "Lord, help me," she said. Well, at least he acknowledges her here, right? And he, and again, I think you can look at it this way, that he's kind of discouraging her. But I think there's a couple ways to look at this. Is he really discouraging her, or is he priming her, testing her again, trying to get her to see that faith grow?
Right. And where was Jesus originally? Who was he reaching? It was the Jewish people. And the way that I've seen this is he's saying, I've only really been commissioned to these lost sheep, these Jewish people of Israel. And he's saying basically, once that's done, then I'm going out towards the world. But here she is. Here the world is, right here. And so he's priming her, I think. Even though she's not Jewish, she still has some needs, and she still has faith, and he's just moving her along.
Yeah, so it's interesting that he says that in front of his disciples, I'm sure. But Jesus has already given an indication that his ministry is not just for the Jews.
Oh, absolutely.
He's a light to the Gentiles. And he says it really at the beginning of his ministry when he goes to Nazareth, if you remember this, and he says, there were many lepers, but he only healed one, the Gentile from the Syrian general. And
it seems like...
I think he also brings up Elijah's with that woman that was a Gentile.
And I think the answer for that verse will come later, in the passage. But Yeah, it is a little confusing if you just look at that and you go, "What is happening?" Until we move on, it's hard,
So then come these really dramatic verses.
Yes.
Verses 26 to 27, where the core of the message of this miracle is.
Right.
He replied, "It is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to their dogs." "Yes, Lord," she said, "but even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table." Now here we are. Calling a person a dog was a terrible insult.
Right.
I know you probably realized that there were different kinds of dogs, but you want to comment on that?
Well, yeah, so commentators have some thoughts about this. What they say is it's not the dogs that were out just in the street which would be a very, very offensive thing to say. It seems to mean like the little pet dogs when it's referring to the Gentiles, but it's talking about the dog like you and I would have, that we would throw scraps from the table. I think in our today's language, if you called somebody a dog, it didn't matter whether it was a small dog or a big dog or an outside, it would be an insult. Yeah. But at that time, supposedly it wasn't. And so,
although I think it was an insult.
Yeah, I still think I wouldn't have taken it well.
But I think that what's really is, and we don't know this for sure, but we know enough about Jesus and how he handled people, and we know the outcome of the story.
Oh, absolutely.
How did he say it? Did he say this by looking mean at her?
No.
She
didn't say you're a dog.
It's not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dog. No, I think he said it with kind of a smile on his face.
Right.
No, it's not proper to throw the children's meal and give it to the dogs. And
she does the same thing.
Yeah.
Yes, Lord.
Yeah.
But even
right, you got to admire that the wit that she comes back with.
Yeah.
And yet Jesus does use, but the word dog, and I agree with you that this is a little lap dog.
Yeah.
And that makes the tone even more
lighter.
Lighter, yeah. Right, and gives her the idea that what he's really talking about here is seeing how far she will go to hang on to him.
Did you find anything about the bread? I found some symbolism. The bread is the ministry of Jesus and the blessings he gives, and this is for the maybe the Jewish people at the time, but what he's saying too is God has not excluded the Gentiles from the ministry of Jesus. It just is saying like at this period and this time he was reaching them, and yet some Gentiles still received the grace and mercy of Jesus in the midst of that time. And I think that's interesting. I never had heard that before. And what he's saying is, hey, even the dogs eat at the crumbs that fall on the master's table. He's saying, you're still getting my grace and mercy. So that was interesting.
Just back to the word dog again. Why some people say this is a tough thing for Jesus to have said. Because even I think in the book of Revelation it is, and the dogs will not enter heaven. The dogs. We think of dogs in a totally different way today. They didn't generally have pets in that day. And dogs were scrounging around. They were the street dogs. Yeah. They were not pampered like we do with our dogs.
Right.
And so maybe we've come a long way with dogs.
Our dogs have insurance and psychologists.
They do.
They do not at that time.
Right. Yeah. Right. So we do. So he was testing her, and she rose to the test. Many when they're tested like this, though, they either sink into silence and feel defeated, or get angry.
Right.
And she did neither, which shows something very special about this woman, that she met the test and she had an indomitable persistence.
Yeah.
She answers with wit. She, in a sense, her prayer here is the Lord would have mercy for her. And I guess this also contrasts with the way a lot of people pray. You know, they pray that there's a chance that I might get something, or that he may heal. You know, what will it hurt to pray, you know? And then there's the prayer that won't take no for an answer, believes with all their heart, you know, the way that God wants us to pray. He doesn't want us to pray as like we're just taking a chance. This is a lottery, and we'll take a chance. We'll buy a ticket, you know, and but we don't have a prayer, you know.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, this really shows a humble spirit that this lady has. Right. She's basically saying here, you know, even if I just get the crumbs, then I'm still getting your grace and mercy. That's enough. And we know that God is not a God who just gives crumbs, you know, because His grace overflows to us. But it shows a great faith and spirit that she has towards Jesus, and it's a beautiful picture of faith here, really. Yeah. That she shows.
She prays with passion, believing.
Yes.
Right? And the final verse, then Jesus answered, "Woman, you have a great faith. Your request is granted." And her daughter was healed from that very hour.
Yeah.
Wow, to have Jesus say, "You have a great faith." What an awesome compliment, you know, to anybody. And again, she's a Gentile. So Jesus awakened her faith. He tested her faith. He brought forth and refined her faith. Yeah. You know, he did all of that in leading her to come to Him and believe in Him.
Right. And this is a second Gentile that the faith was praised, that Jesus praised. Centurion. Yeah, the centurion was the first one, and then here Jesus is praising her faith, and she's submitting to Jesus and accepting. And I love the ESV. She's healed instantly. That's so great.
You know, her faith, and the centurion's faith for that matter, is kind of in contrast with the disciples. And it's meant to test them in a way too. To say, look, these people who don't have the Word of God like you do, don't have the blessings of the fathers, you know, they're believing. And you of little faith, come on, get what you're watching me do all these miracles. Yeah. And yet you're not sure, you're doubting, you hold back. Right. And they didn't.
No.
And I thankfully, when I read this, I'm amazed at her faith, because I would like to pray without doubting. I would like to do that, but there are times it just happens, you know. You want your faith to grow and grow and grow, but
we do. We you know, have those doubts, but yet Jesus continues to work faith in our hearts, and you know, this kind of reminds me of communion a little bit too. You know, these crumbs, you know, this bread that we receive, and that we receive that forgiveness and grace in that way as regularly as possible when we have the opportunity to receive it. And that's an amazing gift of faith and grace and mercy Jesus gives us too.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, that ends our session for today.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us, and don't miss us next week. We'll see you then.